Hello students, welcome to the lecture on reproduction, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives. Describe the organism of reproduction, discuss two pre-fertilization events, explain about modes of reproduction, describe about vegetative propagation in plants. Now let us start our lecture by defining reproduction. Reproduction is defined as the production of individuals of the same species, that is the next generation of the species. While it is one of the fundamental characteristics of living things, it is not an essential life process. Reproduction is thus essential for continuation of the species. It ensures that the genetic material of one generation is transmitted to the next. Each generation also produces more offspring for the next generation. This is because many individuals die due to various reasons like disease, competition, genetic factors, etc. before reaching the reproductive age. Thus, reproduction ensures that there is competition and only the fittest and the best survive and reach the reproductive age. What is chronological age? Chronological age is the number of years a person has lived, used especially in psychometrics as a standard against which certain variables such as behavior and intelligence are measured. Living things can reproduce in two different ways. Sexually, through the union of mating of male and female. This does not involve the union of male and female. Let's find out more about them. Asexual reproduction. If we take a cutting of a plant and place it in soil, it will grow into a new plant. Gardeners often use this method to grow new plants. Some plants develop new plantlets such as runners, strawberries or side branches, busy. In other plants, storage organs can develop underground which grow into new plants. This is how potatoes are formed. Mushrooms also reproduce asexually by means of spores. As only one parent is involved in asexual reproduction, all the offspring have exactly the same genes as their parent. The offsprings are identical and they are called clones. Sexual reproduction, which involves two parents, occurs in most living plants and animals. The offspring that result from sexual reproduction are similar to the parents but not identical. Sexual reproduction always involves the joining of two sex cells called gametes in a process called fertilization. In humans, the gametes are the ovum and the sperm. The male and female reproductive systems in human beings are completely different because they have different functions. Each and every organism can live only for a certain period of time. The period from the birth to the natural death of an organism represents its lifespan. Lifespans of organisms are not necessarily correlated with their sizes. The sizes of crows and parrots are not very different, yet their lifespans show a wide difference. Similarly, a mango tree has a much shorter lifespan as compared to a peepal tree. Whatever be the lifespan, death of every individual organism is a certainty. That is, no individual is immortal except single-celled organisms. Why do we say there is no natural death in single-celled organisms? There is a large diversity in the biological world, and each organism has evolved its own mechanism to multiply and produce offspring. The organism's habitat, its internal physiology and several other factors are collectively responsible for how it reproduces. Asexual reproduction. In this method, a single individual parent is capable of producing offspring. As a result, the offsprings that are reproduced are not only identical to one another, but are also exact copies of their parent. Are these offspring likely to be genetically identical or different? The term clone is used to describe such morphologically and genetically similar individuals. Asexual reproduction is common among single-celled organisms and in plants and animals with relatively simple organizations. The organism or the parent cell divides into two to give rise to new individuals. Thus, in these organisms, cell division is itself a mode of reproduction. Many single-celled organisms reproduce by binary fission, where a cell divides into two halves and each rapidly grows into an adult. Example, amoeba, paramecium. In yeast, the division is unequal and small buds are produced that remain attached initially to the parent cell, which eventually get separated and mature into new yeast organisms. Members of the kingdom fungi and simple plants, such as algae, reproduce through special asexual reproductive structures. The most common of these structures are zoospores that usually are microscopic motile structures. Other common asexual reproductive structures are conidia in penicillium, buds in hydra, and gemmules in sponges. In plants, the units of vegetative propagation such as runner, rhizome, sucker, tuber, offset and bulb are all capable of giving rise to new offspring. These structures are called vegetative propagates. The picture here shows vegetative propagates in angiosperms. Eye of potato, rhizome of ginger, bulbils of agave, leaf buds of bryophyllum, offset of water hyacinth. You must have heard of terror of Bengal. This is nothing but the aquatic plant water hyacinth, which is one of the most invasive weeds found growing wherever there is standing water. It drains oxygen from the water, which leads to death of fishes. We may find it interesting to know that this plant was introduced in India because of its beautiful flowers and shape of leaves. Since it can propagate vegetative at a phenomenal rate and spread all over the water body in a short period of time, it is very difficult to get rid of them. Sexual reproduction involves formation of the male and female gametes either by the same individual or by different individuals of the opposite sex. These gametes fuse to form the zygote, which develops to form the new organism. It is an elaborate, complex, and slow process as compared to asexual reproduction. Because of the fusion of male and female gametes, sexual reproduction results in offspring that are not identical to the parents or amongst themselves. All organisms have to reach a certain stage of growth and maturity in their life before they can reproduce sexually. The end of juvenile vegetative phase, which marks the beginning of the reproductive phase, can be seen easily in the higher plants when they come to flower. Sexuality in organisms. Sexual reproduction in organisms generally involves the fusion of gametes from two different individuals, but this is not always true. Plants may have both male and female reproductive structures in the same plant, bisexual, or on different plants, unisexual. In several fungi and plants, terms such as homothallic and monoecious are used to denote the bisexual condition, and heterothallic and dioeciously are the terms used to describe unisexual condition. Picture here shows diversity of sexuality in organisms. A. Bisexual animal, earthworm. B. Unisexual animal, cockroach. C. Monoecious plant, Cara. Dioecious plant, Marchantia. Bisexual flower, sweet potato. The video here will show us the process of gametogenesis. It is the process of formation of male and female gametes in the organisms that later fuse to form a zygote.
During spermatogenesis, a diploid male germ cell increases in size to become a primary spermatocyte. The primary spermatocyte undergoes meiosis and cytoplasmic division, forming 4 haploid spermatids. Each of the haploid spermatids differentiates into a mature haploid sperm.
During oogenesis, a diploid female germ cell increases in size to become a primary oocyte. The primary oocyte undergoes meiosis and unequal cytoplasmic division to produce one haploid ovum and 3 polar bodies. The 3 polar bodies disintegrate. Only one functional gamete is produced.
The picture here shows types of gametes. Isogametes of cladophora and alga, heterogametes of fucus and alga, heterogametes of Homo sapiens, human beings. Gamete transfer. In a majority of organisms, male gamete is motile and the female gamete is stationary. Exceptions are a few fungi and algae in which both types of gametes are motile. A large number of the male gametes, however, fail to reach the female gametes. To compensate this loss of male gametes during transport, the number of male gametes produced is several thousand times the number of female gametes produced. In seed plants, pollen grains are the carriers of male gametes and ovule has the egg. Photos here show homogametic contact in alga, germinating pollen grains on the stigma of a flower. Fertilization. The most vital event of sexual reproduction is perhaps the fusion of gametes. This process, called syngamy, results in the formation of a diploid zygote. The term fertilization is also often used for this process. The terms syngamy and fertilization are frequently used, though interchangeably. Where does syngamy occur? When it occurs outside the body of the organism, like in water, this type of gamete fusion is called external fertilization. This happens in the bony fishes and frogs, where a large number of offspring are produced. In most organisms, syngamy occurs inside the body of the organism, hence the process is called internal fertilization. In all these organisms, egg is formed inside the female body where they fuse with the male gamete. In organisms exhibiting internal fertilization, the male gamete is motile and has to reach the egg in order to fuse with it. In these, even though the number of sperms produced is very large, there is a significant reduction in the number of eggs produced. In seed plants, however, the non-motile male gametes are carried to female gamete by pollen tubes. The zygote formation of the diploid zygote is universal in all sexually reproducing organisms. In organisms with external fertilization, zygote is formed in the external medium, usually water, whereas in those exhibiting internal fertilization, zygote is formed inside the body of the organism. Further development of the zygote depends on the type of life cycle the organism has and the environment it is exposed to. In organisms belonging to fungi and algae, zygote develops a thick wall that is resistant to desiccation and damage. It undergoes a period of rest before germination. In organisms with haploidic life cycle, zygote is the vital link that ensures continuity of species between organisms of one generation and the next. Every sexually reproducing organism, including human beings, begin life as a single cell, the zygote. Embryogenesis. Embryogenesis refers to the process of development of embryo from the zygote. During embryogenesis, zygote undergoes cell division, mitosis, and cell differentiation. While cell divisions increase the number of cells in the developing embryo, cell differentiation helps groups of cells to undergo certain modifications to form specialized tissues and organs to form an organism. The video here will show us the process of embryogenesis in humans. Let's look at the video which will explain the different types of vegetative propagation in plants.
Buds formed in different plants. Vegetative reproduction. Vegetative propagation is routinely done and is preferred by many plants. Some of the flowering plants propagate by specialized structures. This method of reproduction is asexual reproduction, where there is no involvement of male and female gametes. This method of propagation in plants is called vegetative propagation or vegetative reproduction. A large number of horticultural crops, such as guava, grapes, pomegranate, orange, and citrus, vegetative crops such as potato and sweet potato, and flowering plants like chrysanthemum are produced through vegetative propagation. Advantages of vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation helps to maintain fixed qualities of the parent plant. Vegetative reproduction offers a uniform rootstock for budding or grafting. This rootstock can be selected from a plant that is immune to diseases. Different types of buds in plants. Stems usually grow above the soil and produce buds, leaves, flowers, and fruits. The place where a leaf rises on the stem is the node, and the portion between the two nodes is called an internode. The stem ends in a bud known as the terminal or apical bud. Buds are also present in the axil of leaves, known as axillary buds. Buds which contribute for growth are called vegetative buds, and those that give rise to flowers are known as flower buds. Buds can also arise on the roots or leaves. Nodes. Grass plants have a weak stem. The internodes are long and the nodal portions will have roots and axillary buds. When they are cut at internodes, these buds develop into independent new plants. Eyes of potato. Potato tuber is a modified stem. The shape of these structures is similar to an eye. These are called the eyes of the potato. These eyes are cut from the tuber and germinated in the soil. Leaf buds. In Birophyllum, buds are situated in the depression of leaf margins. The usual position of buds is either at the terminal part of the shoot or in the axil of a leaf. These buds in Birophyllum are known as epiphyllous. Root buds. In curryleaf plant and neem, these young plants develop from the buds present on the root. They develop into independent plants.
Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Reproduction is defined as the production of individuals of the same species, that is the next generation of the species. Chronological age is the number of years a person has lived, used especially in psychometrics as a standard against which certain variables such as behavior and intelligence are measured. Living things can reproduce in two different ways. One, sexually through the union or mating of male and female, or two, asexually, which does not involve the union of male and female. Each and every organism can live only for a certain period of time. The period from birth to the natural death of an organism represents its lifespan. The term clone is used to describe morphologically and genetically similar individuals. Asexual reproduction is common among single-celled organisms and in plants and animals with relatively simple organizations. In plants, the units of vegetative propagation such as runner, rhizome, sucker, tuber, offset and bulb are all capable of giving rise to new offspring. These structures are called vegetative propagates. Sexual reproduction involves formation of the male and female gametes either by the same individual or by different individuals of the opposite sex. Gametogenesis is the process of formation of male and female gametes in the organisms that later fuse to form a zygote. In organisms with external fertilization, zygote is formed in the external medium, usually water, whereas in those exhibiting internal fertilization, zygote is formed inside the body of the organism.